Okay, so you get to the trial, and the judge will make his mind up. Either you will win or you will lose.
Yeah.
If you win the court case, what happens next?
If you win the court case, it is that you will be notified. Okay. The other party is going
because
to be
the judge doesn't normally make his mind up there and then. He will normally say, I will think about this and I will come back to you.
And depending of the complexity of the case, it's going to take more time.
Yes. How long, roughly?
It can be 2 months.
Okay.
2 months more in order to have a court resolution. Okay. If I win the case, I will be notified about that. The other party is going to be notified of that. Any of the parties has the possibility to appeal.
Yes. How long do they have before they must appeal?
We have a short time. We have 5 days.
5 days only?
5 days in order to inform, not to prepare our appealing.
No, but just to say whether you intend to or not.
Yeah, 5 days to mention that we have the intention to do the appealing. Okay?
Yes.
If we win the case, normally is going to be the other part who is going to pay the legal cost of that you have had in the case. But not that happening in all cases. It's a decision of the judge.
Yes.
Okay? If it is a case that it wasn't 100% clear and the other part has some argument that at the end has been refused, it can happen that I lose the case, but I have no obligation to pay the cost to the other part. Okay, that is a decision that is going to be done by the judge, depending of the case.
Yes.
In most of the case, if I win, the other part will pay all the costs that you have had with the case.
But of course, it's important to understand, isn't it, that the judge can order the other person to pay the costs, but if they haven't got any money and can't pay, then you are still responsible for your lawyer's costs.
Of course.
Yes, so it's an opportunity to get that money back from the other party as opposed to a guarantee that you won't have to pay.
Yeah, that is it. Is that when you are appointing a lawyer, you are assuming the obligation to pay the fees of your lawyer.
Yes.
Okay, it is that you have the obligation to pay that, and you will pay that. If you win, you can claim back, you can get back all that money that you have spent on your lawyer, but the fees that you must pay to your lawyer is your responsibility.
And then, apart from the issue of costs, the order of the judge will either say, you must, the title to this land must be transferred into the name of Mr. Smith, or Mr. Smith must pay 200,000 euros compensation to Mr. Jones. So the order will state what has to happen. And how do you enforce that? Let's say that the court orders Mr. Smith to pay 200,000 euros compensation to Mr. Jones. How do you make that happen?
That is, in some cases, it is that we must go through the execute of that judgment. Okay? And in some cases, it happens that execution of the judgment is going to take more time than the court case. Okay? It is that in some cases, I say that we have a very nice judgment, but at the end it's a piece of paper. Okay? We haven't the 200,000 euros with us. Okay? It is that it is necessary to start a procedure to execute that resolution from the court, the judgment. Okay? We will communicate to the judge, to the court, to go ahead with the execution. Okay? And we will, in the first instance, we will give the opportunity to the other part 20 days to pay the 200,000 euros. Okay? If they don't pay, we must start a different procedure in order to look for any asset, any bank account, any property, any asset that we can use to get the money that should be paid, the 200,000 euros. If we find a property, and then it will be necessary to note an embargo on that property. If the other party is still not paying, we must execute that embargo. The executing of an embargo can take months.
And of course, as we said before you start a case, it's sensible to make sure that the person has some money, because so far you've spent, 2 or maybe 3 years dealing with this court case, and if you find at the end of the day the guy's got no money, it's a complete waste of time and money.
Totally. It is because we advise from the beginning to contact with the lawyer to analyze your position and what is the solvency of the other part, because at the end of the day it can be that you have spent money and what you have is a very nice judgment piece of paper but it means nothing. You haven't the money.
Now, one of the features of the Spanish legal system which helps in this situation is that when you start a court case, you have the ability to register something called an embargo preventiva.
That is correct.
And this is a note on, say, the land registry that says, hey, I have a court case against this man, and therefore if I win the case, my rights take priority over anybody else's rights.
That is correct.
So can that be registered against just land, or can that be registered at the bank? Can you register that in all sorts of places?
It is that we can register that on any asset, okay? A bank account, or a property, a piece of land, or the house, okay? It is necessary to inform, it is necessary to explain to the judge why we want to do that.
So the judge authorizes it?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is not something that is going to happen in all cases. We must explain why we are doing that. A court case is going to take time.
Yes.
Okay, and it can happen that that property is going to be sold during that case.
Yes.
It is necessary to explain everything in detail about why we want to do that embargo preventivo in order to have that property blocked during all the court case.
And are the judges sympathetic to applications for embargos preventivos, or are they reluctant to grant them?
They are reluctant to do it.
So you have to show that there's a risk that you may not get paid.
You must prove that there is a risk that the court case can finish and that asset that exists now is not going to be in place at the end of the case.
Okay.
That is not something that is going to be authorized easily.
Now, the final part in this section, you've already mentioned appeals. One of the features, not just of the Spanish legal system, but of several continental legal systems, is the huge number of appeals.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned earlier on, something like 60% probably of all cases, civil cases in Spain, are appealed.
That is.
And also large numbers of criminal cases and so on.
A part of it.
So this is something that will surprise people from many countries. I mean, for example, as a lawyer in England, I only ever in my entire career appealed about 6 cases.
Yeah.
And I think in England at the moment it's about 5% of cases get appealed.
Yeah.
So this really is a huge factor because it doubles or more than doubles the cost and it doubles the time.
More than the double.
Yes.
In many cases, because the case will go to a second instance,
Yes.
okay, and the resolution normally is going to take more than a year.
Yes.
It is that the time can be double or more than the double in total.
I sometimes used to wonder in Spain why we ever bothered with first instance. We just go straight to the appeal court. They make life much simpler. Why do you think it is that so many cases here are appealed?
It happens because parties are not happy with the first resolution that has been done, okay, and they think that they have arguments to appeal, okay. Always you have some arguments to appeal because you are not 100% agree with the resolution that has been done, okay.
Do you think it might have something as well to do with the fact that in many of the places where there are most tourists, you have lots of relatively junior judges. In Spain, you become a judge straight after qualifying as a lawyer, really, whereas in other countries you have to work as a practicing lawyer for 20 years before you're made a judge. Yeah. Do you think that the relative inexperience of the judges makes it more likely?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so, because in many cases there are some judge that has been working as judge for 20 years.
And they still get the same rate?
And they still have the same.
Okay, so it's part of the Spanish mentality then?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, it can be.